What's up, YouTube? It's a cold and rainy day here today in Nebraska, so today I decided that I wanted to can up some beef stew. Today I'll be using this recipe, which comes from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, and out of all the Ball books, I like this one the best. If you're new to canning or want to get started in canning, I really recommend this book. As you can see, I use it a lot. Now I'll go ahead and leave the recipe down in the description box. And the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and brown up my stew meat. So I'll go ahead and meet you over at the stove and let's get started. Alright guys, so like I said, my first step is I want to go ahead and brown off my stew meat. Now I did go ahead and do about 3 batches already. And you want to start with about 4 to 5 pounds of stew meat. So to this hot skillet here, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. It's nice and smoking hot. And go ahead and add my meat. Now we don't necessarily want to cook this all the way through, we just want a nice brown color. We are going to pressure can this after all, so I'll bring you back when this is nice and brown. Alright guys, so my stew meat is nice and brown here, so I'm just going to go ahead and transfer it into my stock pot. Now I'm also going to scrape out any of these juices or brown bits and stick them in the pot too. Now to this 4 pounds of stew meat, I'm going to go ahead and add about 12 cups of potatoes. Now whenever I know I'm going to can the next day, I always like to prep all my ingredients beforehand because it just makes it a lot faster. Especially with pressure canning, it takes hours. And I like to keep my potatoes in nice big chunks just like this. And go ahead and dump them in. Now half of these potatoes came from my garden and the other half came from the pantry. Now in this bag I have 3 cups of chopped onion that came from my garden. 3 cups of chopped celery that I had to buy. My celery did not come up this year. And I also have about 8 cups of carrots that I sliced. Half of these came from my garden and half of them came from the store. And just like my potatoes, I like to keep my veggies in chunks like this. So go ahead and dump that in too. Now as you can see, this is going to make a huge pot of stew. I'm hoping to get at least 7 quarts that I can store in my pantry. By the look of this, I think I might get a little bit more. Now for the spices, I have 4½ teaspoons of canning salt, a half a teaspoon of fresh ground black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of thyme. This just happens to be lemon thyme that I grew from my garden, dehydrated and vacuum sealed. So go ahead and throw that in. Now to add the liquid. The recipe in the Ball book says you can just use water, but I want to add a little bit more flavor here, so I'm going to add some beef broth. So I'm going to start with about 10 cups, and that's going to be about 2½ of these boxes. Alright guys, so after I stuck in that 10 cups of broth, I decided I need a little bit more liquid. Now I do have 2 cups left over, but today I'm going to be making some French dip sandwiches in the crock pot, so I need that beef broth. So what I'm going to do is add about 2 more cups of water. Alright guys, now that looks perfect. Now you just want to bring this up to a boil, and I'll show you what to do next. Alright guys, so I brought my stew up to a boil and it smells great in here. Now while this was coming up to a boil, I went ahead and ran my jars through the dishwasher on the sanitize cycle, and they are still warm. You never ever want to put hot liquid into a cold jar. Your jars will get shocked and break. I also have my lids over here in some hot water. I have a little bit of vinegar with a piece of paper towel to wipe my rims, my funnel, and my debubbler. I like to make sure I have everything in place. So now I'm just going to fill up the jars. Normally I would just fill one jar up at a time. Because I'm pressure canning here, you want to leave an inch of headspace, and that's right here at the neck of the jar. But because I'm hot packing this soup, I want a little bit of all the vegetables in each jar. Sometimes when you just fill one jar up at a time, by the time you get to the last jar, it's mostly broth. So I'm just going to start with a good ladle in each jar first. And each time I go to dip back into the pot, I'm going to give it a good stir. Now that I have one scoop in each jar, I'm just going to continue that process until it's done. Now to me this looks like it's going to make way more than 7 quarts, so I may have to go get some more jars. But just continue filling them up. Alright guys, so I have filled my jars with the vegetables first and a little bit of the broth. So now I'm just going to give it a little tap here. To make sure that it's all settled down at the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and top off the rest of my jars with broth, and like I said, I'll be using an inch of headspace, which is right here at the neck of this jar. So now that I have it filled with my broth to 1 inch of headspace, I'm going to take my debubbler here and just make sure there's no air bubbles. That looks good to me. Next, I just dipped my paper towel into some white vinegar, and I'm going to wipe the rim here. You want to make sure there's no food particles, any grease or fats or anything like that that can inhibit the seal. And any time that I'm doing meats or something like that that may be greasy, I like using white vinegar. Now I just got one of my hot lids here. Grab a ring, and you want to tighten this down to fingertip tight. Now I'm going to do the rest of these, and I'll show you what to do next. Alright guys, so here's my 7 quarts right here, and I actually had enough to do about 2 more quarts, with just about a little bit left over that I can have for lunch. Now I did not have enough broth to fill these 2 quarts all the way up to that 1 inch headspace, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and fill it with my hot water. Alright guys, so for this first batch, I'm going to go ahead and just do 5 jars. This canner will hold 7 quarts, but since I got those 2 extra jars, I don't want to go ahead and just can 2 jars here. I read somewhere that you don't ever want to can less than 4 jars. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to stick by it. Now to prepare my canner, I went ahead and put about 3 quarts of water in here, and it was already simmering. Now you just want to grab your lid. I inspected my ring to make sure there was no nicks or anything like that on it. It looks good. You want to make sure that your locking mechanism is working, and go ahead and blow through this hole. Make sure there's nothing clogging that. Now I'm just going to line up my arrows and close the canner. I'm then going to crank my heat up to high. When this spitcock starts spitting steam at a steady pace, we're going to time it for 10 minutes. So I'll bring you back when it's spitting. Alright guys, so as you can see, it's spitting a steady stream of steam. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 10 minutes, and let this vent. I'll bring you back when I put the weight on. Now I let this vent for 10 minutes. Now I'm going to put on the weight. So now I'm just going to let the pressure come up to, in my case, it's 11 pounds of pressure. You need to check what the proper poundage is for your area. When it comes to 11 pounds, I'm going to start my timer for 90 minutes. If you were using pints, it'd be 75 minutes. And then you want to slowly lower your heat to maintain that pressure. Because this is going for so long, 90 minutes, mine has a tendency to stop somewhere between 13 and 14. But you never want it to go below your proper poundage, because then you have to start all over again. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's coming out of the canner. Alright guys, so here's the first 5 quarts out of my canner. So after the 90 minutes, I went ahead and shut off the heat, and I let it come off of pressure naturally. It took about an hour. As you can see here, they're still nice and bubbly. So I'll just let these sit here for about 24 hours. Tomorrow, I'll go ahead and remove the rings, make sure they sealed, and wash them down with soap and water. After that, I'll just dry them off and throw them in the canning closet. This will be a great fast meal this winter when we don't have a lot of time, but we want something good to eat. With a side salad and some homemade biscuits, this will be a complete and delicious meal. So now I'm just going to go ahead and process my other 4 quarts. So I hope you give this video a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching, happy canning, and I'll see you next time.